You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Steiner and you're listening to Mark of the Maker. This is episode 151 of the show, and this one's kind of in a different sort of interview with a friend of mine, but we'll get to that in just a minute. First, we'd like to thank all of our friends on Patreon for their long-running support. Patreon is our primary source of funding for the show. They help keep the lights on around here, keep mics in motion, replace equipment when it gets broken, which happens more than you'd think. So we really appreciate all of you. Patreon.com/markofthemaker is where you can find us. If you'd like to support the show through a monthly donation to the show, or you can grab the link at the top right-hand side of our website. There's also a PayPal link there if you just want to send a couple bucks our way to help keep things going. Either way, we appreciate all of your help. Second of all, I'd like to thank Giant Mouse Knives for their support and their generous giveaway donations that they do all the time for us. We've been doing one every quarter. We're actually slightly probably behind schedule for this year, so we need to get moving on that. But they're constantly running reissues of some of their earlier designs over there on Giant Mouse and bringing new stuff to you in different variants, different materials, and other stuff. So be sure to go by and check them out over at giantmouse.com. And then last, I'd like to say thanks to Arizona Custom Knives. You can find them at arizonacustomknives.com. They have over 17,000 items currently in stock. Now, those are SKUs apparently, not individual items. So some of them have multiples. They do mostly custom stuff over there at Arizona, but they do have production knives and sometimes more than one example of a specific piece. So everything from, like I said, production to super exotic art knives and other things, swords, you name it, watches, gadgets, etc. It's a beautiful place to just look around. A great spot to buy if you're looking for a special knife. Sometimes they have some pretty interesting pieces and some really hard to find stuff as well. So if you do decide to make a purchase at Arizona Custom Knives, you can use code MARKOFTHEMAKER ! All as one word at checkout, and that will get you free shipping. So again, thank you to our friends at Arizona Custom Knives. They've been with us for a long time, and we appreciate their support as well. So this interview is really kind of the second in a series of live on-site interviews that we've started to do. I think we're going to try to catch up with a number of different folks in person when we can. You know, we do short face-to-face interviews at shows, and people seem to really enjoy those. But, you know, Sean did one for us a little while back with his mentor, Mike Franklin, that turned into a very long two-part episode. And it was a great way for Sean to just capture some conversation with Mike that might have been otherwise difficult to get. So this time, even though this wouldn't be really a hard one to record, I took our portable recording rig and headed over to Lansing, Michigan to get together with my friend Jim Wirth, who is one of the founders of Giant Mouse Knives. We did this at Giant Mouse Knives Boutique there in Lansing, in downtown Lansing area. Jim is a lifelong collector of all kinds of stuff, many things over his lifetime. You'll hear about that in the interview here. And Jim has a fascinating story. He's an entrepreneur, an investor, a collector, a knife and watch enthusiast. He's got lots of other interests as well, including metal detecting and all kinds of stuff. So grab a coffee or your favorite beverage and have a seat and enjoy the conversation. This one ran fairly long, so I split it into two parts for you. So this is part one of our chat with Jim. I snapped some photos of some of these oddities that Jim has, and I know he has some great photos as well. So we'll share these in our Facebook group. Some of them are a little bit difficult to explain. They'll make more sense when you see the photos. But if you aren't already a member there, please go and join our Facebook group. We always share photos of stuff that we talk about in the shows, and this is a great example of one where you're going to want to see the photos. There's some super cool things that he shared with me during my visit. So again, hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I did sitting down with Jim and having a chat one weekend afternoon a little while ago. All right, so I'm here with my buddy Jim Wirth, and we're in the Giant Mouse inner sanctum, right? Intergalactic headquarters. That's right. Of Giant Mouse Knives in downtown Lansing, in Old Town Lansing.
Old Town Lansing.
Right? What's when people say Old Town Lansing, is this legitimately the original central part of town, or is it just like non-modernized part of Lansing.
I think it's so basically downtown is the capital and all the banks, the big banks and big commercial operations, a lot of retail. And then there's Old Town, which is kind of on a periphery of Lansing in one area that has, it's kind of like if you drive through any town in Michigan, you see the 2 or 3 block long street with really cool frontage, of the buildings, cool architectures and facades and things on the fronts. And it's just all retail and restaurants. And we just got a new bakery in town. That's amazing. And then there's Rio Town, which is on the other side, which again is kind of on the periphery, but that was the old home base of the Rio Motor Car Company manufacturing.
Right.
So
Ransom E. Olds.
Ransom Eli
Rio.
Olds, yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. I think is there an Oldsmobile or an REO museum?
There is. If you haven't been there, you've got to go, especially as a car guy.
Yeah.
Because not only do they have the whole history of the Rio Motor Car Company, but they've got an incredible collection of muscle cars in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great museum, and it's just just off Michigan Avenue,
right?
I think, real close to here.
We'll have to go there one day if you're interested.
Definitely. I'd love to take you there.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I've been, and it's amazing.
My buddy Scott, that I worked with for some number of years at GM, he retired, and he's an interesting guy. He flies helicopters and all kinds of nutty stuff. And he's a curator there. He's one of the helpers.
Oh, really?
At the museum.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'll have to reach out to him and see if he's still there, because maybe we get a little behind the scenes tour or something. Would be fun.
I'll take him one of our Rios.
Yeah.
the Ace Rio that we did, and we named it after Rio Town.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. My daughter lived downtown, and when we would leave, we would always drive through the edge of Rio Town over along the freeway, at least where the sign is over there. And so, I don't remember how I found out that he was involved in the museum, but he was like, come on out. So I'll have to reach out to him.
Let's do that. I'd love to get more of a docent tour.
Yeah.
Because I took Jesper there, and I figured we had somebody else with us, might have been one of my sons, but we went and just walked through ourselves and took tons of pictures. It was awesome. Yeah. And of course, I in a lot of the display cases, found lots of things that I'm like, oh my God, something else to collect.
Right.
Which, I've basically since, been, so an old diamond Rio tape measure, Rio Zippo, for Rio. Actually have somewhere at home, I've got a recipe book from the 40s of the women that worked there that put together, they all brought in their recipes, and they put together a recipe book for the Rio Motor Car Company employees. I've got a lot of these things, like the Rio Club of America.
Oh, wow.
A badge for a grill of a car.
Super cool.
And so many people have no idea that, REO Speedwagon stole their name and logo exactly from, the Rio Motor Car Company. So that's again, a grill that would have been a grill badge.
Yeah.
But this came off of an actual truck.
Yeah, this is all enameled and contoured to the shape of the front of the car. That's really awesome.
These would have been, but this would have been on one of the old trucks, right? The Rio Speedwagon. Which then, the band was like, that's a cool name for a band. Let's call ourselves REO Speedwagon and steal the wings and everything from their logo. Yeah, so I tell people that. Of course, I'm so old now that most of the people that I say, the band REO Speedwagon, they're like, no.
They have no idea what you're talking about.
Nobody I talk to anymore knows the band REO Speedwagon.
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. That stuff's really cool. So what Jim's showing me is are all these cool REO Motor Car Company artifacts, and it's a huge piece of Lansing history, the town where the headquarters is. So that's really fun. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to Jim about some of his background to give you guys some insight. He's a definite solid candidate for most interesting man in the world, in my opinion. And he has deep proclivity for collecting and oddities, and we love oddities on the show. We're huge fans of that stuff. And so Jim's got an awesome little lineup of stuff, a little sliver of his curious things that he's collected over the years, and he's a big watch guy, so he's got a monster watch collection here that we're going to look at a little bit later on. And just the shop, if you get a chance to come to the Giant Mouse headquarters. It's a fantastic collection of that kind of stuff, plus the knives and everything else. So nice little boutique kind of setting and stuff Jim likes, basically. Which I think is fairly accurate, right? So yeah, give us some basic stuff for the folks at home. Tell a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to this point in your life. You're about my age. We're real similar in age, I think.
Yep.
I think we told the story during the Giant Mouse on-site that Sean and I did. Jim's wife and I went to high school together, which is kind of crazy, small world stuff. But yeah, why don't you explain to folks kind of where you grew up and how you got into this path somewhere along the way?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Bay City, Michigan, and started collecting things when I was a kid. I don't know what it was, maybe my ADHD or something, but I would go real deep on things that I would come across that I found interesting. So like skeleton keys, right? I was like at my grandma's house one day and there's like a key in a door and I pull it out and it's a skeleton key. I'm like, wow, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So like right away, I need to start collecting skeleton keys, right? And that's like just one of dozens and dozens of examples of things. At one point, many years ago, I don't know how long Instagram had even been running, but just for kicks, I did 30 days of collections in like the month of March. And it's like,
maybe I remember that.
Every day I put up a different collection of mine, something that I was collecting.
That's cool.
And I was able to cover 30 days
of different kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, just a quick background. When I went to Michigan State University, I met my now wife there a few months before graduation, but I had work lined up in San Francisco. So after I graduated, I moved out west. And then after about a year, Tracy moved out and we were out there 30 years. We got married there and had 2 boys there. Yeah. And I had a whole career there, basically. I not too long after having started working at an accounting firm out there, realized I hated accounting. And of course, then I was like, why did I get a master's in accounting from one of the best business schools in the country? But it served me well because it allowed me to go work on a big project as an independent contractor with a couple other guys from the accounting firm I was working at. And over the course of that project, we started our own consulting firm. And that was a real kick because I was pretty young and, my partners were young and we were just figuring everything out. It was in, around 94, I think, when we started our company. And we grew it pretty big and then merged with another private company in 2003 and then continued to grow really quite big to about 700 employees. And then in 2006, Hewlett Packard acquired the company. And that's another thing that, I tell this story sometimes to younger people and they're like, what's Hewlett Packard? And I'm like, oh, like your printer at home says HP on it. Right. Yeah, that's actually Hewlett Packard. So I was able to just retire early right then and there. I checked out. I had been working like for 12 years, straight, completely burned out, alienated from my family. So I was like, I'm done. I got to take a break. So I did for about, 8 or 9 years. I wasn't completely, doing nothing. I was doing some angel investing and I was doing some advisory work for some San Francisco Bay Area startups. But then a friend of mine out in California, saw the things I was collecting through my Instagram posts. And, I really, at that time, I really enjoyed taking cool photos and posting just interesting, kind of eclectic, unique things. So he just said, Jim, you take such great photos and you put up these posts and everybody seems to love the things that you find. You should start a little business like an e-commerce company and make that stuff available for people. So I was like, this sounded interesting, and like something fun, that I could pretty easily do. So I did. I basically set up a Shopify website and at the time called it Golden Gate Goods and started reaching out to some of the makers of some of the things that I was buying and, buying them at wholesale and making them available at retail. A good example is, I was in Cape Cod one summer and I found this billiard ball that had been carved into a skull. So I was like, that is, and I love skulls, as you can see on the table here. I've always been fascinated by skulls and skeletons. So this, billiard ball, I took it back to the house, caught, and took a picture of it and put it up on my Instagram. And right away I had people saying, "Oh my God, where did you get that? I need that, And so I replied, yeah, there's like 3 or 4 more there. I could run back and grab them and just, you could PayPal me. And so that kind of clinched it for me. Like, yeah, there's something here, right? Yeah. There's a way to like find cool shit and put it up on Instagram, and there'll be people that want it, So I did. I reached out to the artist that made these, and I started buying them at wholesale, whole sets of these billiard ball skulls, and had those for quite a while on my site with a number of other things. But then at one point, just not that long into it, said, I'd really kind of rather design my own things.
Yeah.
So I completely changed things up. I got rid of all of the third-party products that I was just buying at wholesale, and then I started designing my Carpe Diem products, basically. So I changed the name of the company to Carpe Diem EDC, and I started out by designing a coin, a Carpe Diem coin, because the whole theme of Memento Mori, remember death, Tempus Fugit, time flies, and Carpe Diem, seize the day, really strikes pretty significantly for me. And I designed this first coin after I turned 48. My dad died when he was 48. So my dad had MS, and so I was only 10. But when I turned 48, I started to realize, wow, I've now lived longer than my own dad.
Right.
This every day is a gift at this point. I really should look at like every day, like he didn't get this opportunity, and I have this opportunity. So I really should, make the most of every single day. And so I just went, again, probably somewhat ADHD, driven, but went really, really deep into the whole theme of Memento Mori and Carpe Diem, and did tons of research, and ended up finding more things to collect. As you'll see some of these Victorian era clocks on the table that are basically Memento Mori clocks that we can talk about, but they're basically like old.
Right.
1800s, pocket watch movements, basically, but they're set into these desktop skull clocks.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
So that was that. Yeah. And then about a year into that, I ended up, and I've always collected knives. I think anybody that knows me has probably heard the story that when I was a kid, maybe 13 or 14, my oldest brother gave me a little Gerber Silver Knight with pearl handles, little lockback folder, nickel silver bolsters. I should have brought that. I still have that knife. That's what set off my whole passion for knives, because this little knife was just beautiful. It came in a tiny little black box with just an outline of a knight on a horse in silver, like gilt, print on the box. And just the box itself was like, oh my God, that's fascinating. And then this little knife pops out, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. So that just, sent me down this path of wanting to, collect knives and learn everything I could about knives. And so I have pretty much my whole life been, collecting knives and interested in knives. And back in like 2014-ish, I used to go, actually for many years, I would take Greg Stevens, Greg well. Actually, Greg's who introduced me to you.
Yep.
Where we learned the connection of that you and my wife were both Pinckney Pirates.
Right. Yes.
So Greg and I would go to the big knife shows and share a room.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned I had sleep apnea as well, because Greg basically said, oh my God, I thought you died 3 times last night.
Right.
So finally I went in and got checked. So Greg, you probably saved my life if you're listening to this. Thanks. But now I can't get insurance to cover a new CPAP machine. So there's that. But anyways, we went to the New York Custom Knife Show this year, and one of my goals was to try to buy a custom knife from either Jesper Voxnaes or Jens Anso.
And that was 2014, you said?
Or I think it was about 2014 probably. And it was either 13 or 14. And I was, again, doing lots of research. I would always get the knife annuals, you go to the bookstore and you got the big, like 1.5 inch thick knives, illustrated annual, whatever. And you'd go through, you'd see all the custom makers and all the custom knives. And I just was really drawn to the designs from Vox and Anso. So I went to try to buy one of their custom knives at the show. And when I went up to their tables, which were just side-by-side tables, and met them for the first time, all three of us were wearing a Panerai watch. And Panerai, which you're wearing today, it's one of those if you know kind of brands, at least
certainly then it was.
Back then, for sure. I mean, it's become much more of a luxury brand now, but back then it was the tool watch brand and the kind of the cool history brand that, if you're into watches and you've learned about this brand, you're probably going to end up buying a Panerai because they're so freaking cool.
Yeah.
So the fact that these guys were wearing Panerais and I was as well, we like right away realized that we're not only all knife guys, but we're watch guys. So we hit it off and just became really instant friends. And that just kind of, evolved into regular conversations through email and text and seeing each other at the next couple of shows. And within about a year, we started kind of talking about, hey, let's put a brand in place as kind of a side gig for the three of us that would allow you to Vox and Anso to collaborate together on designs. The only collaboration they'd ever done prior to that, they had collaborated on a kitchen set for one of the Italian, I think it was Fox. It was either Fox or Lion Steel, but they had collaborated on a kitchen set that won Kitchen Set of the Year that year.
Okay.
And then they also had done a collaboration on a Spyderco, the Pingo. A little Spyderco Pingo was a Vox Anso collaboration. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a very cool little knife.
Yeah,
if you can find one, they have a version that's all titanium with an anodized spider, the Spyderco logo on the scale, which is very cool.
That's awesome.
So we did. We put a brand in place and launched it. And everybody always asks, how did you come up with the name Giant Mouse? And that was Jesper, and he had that name in mind. He'd been thinking about it for quite a while because Danish design or Scandinavian design is, kind of revered as giants in the world of design.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Denmark's a tiny little country with a population about the same as Michigan, Yeah. So they're like giant mice in Denmark. They're the most happy, wonderful, friendly people in the country. It's just a great culture there. I've been there a few times now. But when it comes to their history of design, it's just epic. So I loved that, kind of story behind the name. And I loved the name. I knew that it had, just a kind of cachet of being a cool brand name, which was unique and different.
Right.
But right away, what came into my mind was, we're going to be this little boutique premium knife brand in a giant industry.
Absolutely.
Like we're never going to be CRKT or Kershaw, right? And we don't want to be.
Right.
We love being nimble and small and lean and being able to just kind of turn on a dime and do whatever we want to do. And that was always the plan, Let's just do what we want to do. Let's make the knives we want to make. And, we're not beholden to any, shareholders or any,
right.
board of directors or anything like that. We can just kind of do as we please.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I think it's interesting, if we go back in your personal story, I think a lot of times people make this grievous error, right? This mistake of sometimes looking at people who build something like a business, like the consulting firm that you and your friends built, and then it gets sold or they cash out of it or whatever and retire early, like that's some kind of easy path, luxury play kind of scene, right? And the reality is, in almost every case I've ever heard of, it's what you described, which is you poured your guts into it, right? Completely probably ignoring everything else in life to try to make that work and happen and be successful and grow and whatever.
Yeah.
And you can quickly get lost in that, right? And there can be this strong epiphany thing, right? Where, wait a second.
Yep.
This isn't what I started it for or what I intended to do, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything I've gained by doing this is great and wonderful, and I'm super happy and thankful that it happened. And man, am I in a different place personally, mentally, family, whatever, right? Than maybe you thought you would be.
Yep.
Right? Or maybe that you had envisioned. And
100%.
Yeah. And I think that's something that people sometimes miss when they look at that situation, but it seems almost always true, right?
Yeah. One of my epiphanies came when we had the consulting firm up and running. It was probably even before, it might have been before or right around the merger that we did with this other private company out of Chicago. And it was probably, 9:30 at night. I'm sitting at the kitchen counter working on a proposal for a client in Silicon Valley that, we're pitching a big project to. And my wife's talking to me. She's in the kitchen, kind of straightening up before we go to bed or whatever, before she goes to bed. And sitting there at my laptop, and finally all of a sudden I think she even pushed my laptop cover closed, and she said, "Even when you're here, you're not here."
Yeah.
Because she'd been talking to me, and but I wasn't listening because I was so deep into this proposal.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me ever since then. That's one of the kind of most sort of, biggest kind of most poignant epiphany moments in my life was that reminder from my wife saying, your company, your job isn't, your life. You have, a family here, you have a life here, you need to. And I've sucked at that really my whole life because as an entrepreneur and a founder of businesses, I can't separate the two. I really struggle with that.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I struggle with that. And now it's funny because when I'm like really stressed about something or worried about something, and it's always, kind of work related, she'll say, "Jim, you're selling knives, not saving lives."
Right. High five,
and
Tracy.
that brings it back to like, you know what? Yeah, it's a product company and we're selling a product. It's not,
Yeah.
There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be issues. There's going to be whatever. And I got to try to just take that perspective. We're selling knives, not saving lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. The only reason I kind of went back to that point is sometimes with my younger counterparts where I work, sometimes I try to help coach people a little on that point, right? That yes, you should try really hard and you should have the deepest possible desire to be successful and to be good at what you do. And don't make the mistake I've made many times in life, right? And still do to this day, right? I don't practice always what I preach in this case, but be present and pay attention to what's happening, right? In your family and in all the parts of life that matter outside of work too, right? And it's super hard to do. Mm-hmm. There's a personality type, I don't know what you want to call it, but that, I've explained this to Amy over a few times, my wife over the years. She'll come try to talk to me when I'm in my office space at home, not even working on work stuff, working on personal project of some kind, right? I'm designing something on the computer or whatever. And she'll come and talk to me and she's not realizing that my brain is someplace else because I'm so deep into what I'm doing. And we hear this a lot from knife makers too, right? Because they get in this kind of zone in their shop and they forget about everything else. And what their brain is doing is processing, sometimes unconsciously, what they're doing with their hands and consuming music or podcasts or books on tape or something. And it's this little dance that goes on inside their brain, right?
Yeah.
To let them be successful. And so, for me, I turn on some kind of instrumental hip hop at some moderate low volume and my brain turns everything else off and just hyper focuses on whatever I'm doing. And that's a happy place for me. I like being there.
Yeah.
Right? It's comfortable and I'm solving problems on the fly and all that kind of stuff. And I can't say because I've not built a business and, to the level of success that you have, but I have to believe that it's something very similar that when you get in that focus place, right?
Yep.
There's very rewarding and sometimes comforting aspect of it because you're doing something. And at the same time, super easy as a result to forget everything else that's going on around you. So
yeah, it really is.
When we started doing this podcast, we made an agreement up front that we had to be really respectful of each other's family life and other stuff. So when we've had gaps of time in the publication of the show, that's almost always been because schedules just didn't work, right? And we have a rule that it has to be okay that, hey, my kid has soccer and I need to be there.
Yeah.
Please, right? No questions asked. We will reschedule. Or, there's one recently where one of the guys, I got to go to a birthday party for somebody. Yep, got it. Right. We'll reschedule because, like you said, we're not saving lives doing this. This is supposed to be for fun, right? It's supposed to be in your case, a business where you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Great. Right. But sometimes we all have to remind ourselves that that's what it is too. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, for people who are listening, especially makers or people who create things, or even someone working a 9-to-5er, right? Don't forget, resident old guy advice. Don't forget, there's a life that you're doing all that for. And it matters.
Yep.
Don't blow it.
It's the old wheel of life chart, right? The pie, the wheel, or kind of the pizza pie with, and if at different times of my life, if I think about, what's my, the goal, if I remember kind of when I first kind of read about this whole wheel of life thing, is to, have it be very diversified.
Yeah.
And to have lots of slices, lots of pieces of pie in your wheel.
Right.
And each one's, one's work, one's family, one's yourself, one's hobbies, whatever. But if I look back and think about that at times throughout my life, it's like my wheel has like two slices in it.
Right.
It's like two halves, one half, or it's not even halves. It's like, there's like one missing piece out of my wheel, which is family. And then the entire rest of the Pac-Man, image is work.
Yeah.
And it's again, as a, type A entrepreneur,
right,
driven kind of personality, it's really easy to get lost in that and just pour everything, from sun up to sundown into your business. Even if you're not physically working or actively working on something, I still carry it with me in the evenings. I'm always thinking about it. And,
absolutely.
And, often, just like even just sitting watching TV with the family, whatever, I'll be on my phone researching something or taking notes that I want to follow up on the next day. It's pretty impossible to put it down for me.
Yeah.
And now I'm realizing that getting kind of to that burnout point again, I'm getting pretty burnt, because this was a really big year for us. We had a number of like really big strategic initiatives this year that were pretty huge lifts for my team and I, and just kind of realizing that I've been burning that candle at both ends and had lit it in the middle as well. And it was time to take a couple days finally, which I never take time off. And so last week, earlier in the week, I said, guys, I'm taking Thursday and Friday off. And I think they were all shocked because I'm usually the first one in the morning. When they come in, I'm sitting here working.
Right.
And so I tried taking Thursday and Friday off, like completely off, like I'm not going to be checking email or voicemail or anything. And then of course, some furnace guy showed up to my house unexpectedly and ended up being there 8 hours working on the furnace. So Friday was shot, but
right.
I tried.
Yeah. It's definitely a hard balance, I think. And the burnout thing is real, right? And what sometimes would happen to me, you and I have talked about this before, my wife will say, why can't you just dabble a little? Why don't you just, why does it have to be you're going to own 100 guitars and have bought and sold 1,000 or 5,000, not just you have one and occasionally you pick it up and play it? Why can't it be like that? And usually my answer is because that's boring as hell. That's not fun.
Yeah. So
there's no depth to that.
You and I are similar in a lot of ways in that regard, with your guitars and your pinball machines
and motorcycles.
You go super deep in your things too. And it's awesome.
It is. But what I learned the hard way is that even when it's that kind of hobby thing, for lack of a better description, it doesn't feel like it at the time. It's easy to burn that out too.
Yeah.
Right. And I did that repeatedly on a bunch of different kinds of hobbies where it was a thing that I started out getting into and my brain was super excited to absorb as much as I could and learn things and develop new ideas and create stuff. And it can quickly spiral into something that's a lot less fun, right?
Yeah.
It either turns into a business or something that takes it a little too far and takes the wind out of it, right? So you got to find that relief valve spot where you let go.
I agree. For me, it's when it gets to the point where, kind of like looking at these cases here, you realize you've gone way too far,
right?
And the prudent thing to do would be, because a lot of it for me is about the hunt. It's about it's about the hunt for the particular model of something or the particular item, and then once I find it and acquire it, and I love having it, that feeling kind of goes away relatively quickly, because the feeling of the desire for the hunt overwhelms that again, and I feel like I'm hunting for something else. And after a while, it almost kind of starts to feel a little gross. It's like, Jesus, am I a hoarder? It's like, what is happening here? So then the prudent thing to do would be, okay, I'm going to sell, 3 or 4 of these watches to fund this one that I've been hunting for a while, that I know I can find a nice, example of in good condition, but, it's quite a bit of money. And rather than just go buy that, I think I'll feel better if I sell some stuff to buy that thing. Right.
Yeah.
But I hate selling stuff, not because I hate parting with it.
Yeah.
I just hate the process of taking pictures and listing them and dealing with the tire kickers.
Yeah.
So, I just recently met a young guy, a freshman at Michigan State, that's into buying and selling watches.
Yeah.
And he's just getting into it. Really, really neat kid. So I told him, look, I'm going to pick out like 5 or 10 of my watches that I would be fine selling. I'm just going to hand them off to you, let you take the pictures, research the prices, post them up for sale, and then, pay you a commission on that. And if that works out, then he'll be my go-to for selling shit going forward. Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of being able to hand it to somebody and it goes away and it gets taken care of is very attractive, right? Because like you said, I bought and sold knives and knives and guitar stuff and you name it. And it just gets so old so fast. It's brutal. Yeah, and so for whatever reason, watches, I have had trouble
I've bought and sold so many watches over the years.
I did when I was buying micro brand stuff. When I started to buy nicer watches, I didn't sell. And then, I don't know. And same with knives. I got to a point with knives where I'm like, I'm not selling stuff anymore. Yeah. But I'm also not going to buy something unless I know it's a keeper. Yeah. This is going to live in my collection kind of thing. Maybe I will sell some stuff at some point, but it doesn't sound very fun. Yeah. So I don't have any other motivation.
At that point now, I mean, I'll be 60 this year, and I start thinking about like when like, I mean, it wasn't as bad, but like when my mom died, all the shit she had that needed to be like, we had to figure out what to do with, right?
Right.
Or like when one of my grandparents would die and we got to figure out, what are we going to do with all their stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I really don't want to leave my kids with this mess of like, oh my God, Dad's got like, 18,000 different things that we have to figure out what to do with. You know, is it valuable or not? How do we sell it? Or do we keep it?
Yeah.
So
that's what I've had a bunch of conversations with my kids in the last few years of like, okay, here's the basement. And that corner of the basement is a treasure trove of riches. None of that is junk, right? So if I get hit by a bus or I keel over from a heart attack tomorrow, that stuff's worth something. Yeah. And mom knows who to call to help figure out what that stuff is worth or how to get rid of it. Yeah. Some of it's so weird that, like a lot of these things are things that are super interesting, and to the right person, they're of great value. And to somebody else, they're a garage sale 50-cent item, right? Yeah. Which is a shame and also important for your family someday, right? Realistically.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I've got one main guy on my list already that I've a good, real close friend of mine, one of my best friends that I, have always told, Tracy, like if something happens to me, call Kevin to figure out what's the situation with these watches, you know. Yeah. But I'm probably going to add you to that list as well because you're local.
Yeah.
guitars, which I actually I don't even play guitar. I'm still desperately trying to learn, and I just can't. But now I've got two pretty nice guitars now. It's like, because they're incredible. I love them as just like an object of art,
Right.
But it's like, this is kind of dumb, I can't even play the damn thing.
Yeah, I understand completely. I have a few things like that that are like, when I started buying a while ago, big giant knives and axes and, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like huge impact implement kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like clubs. It's like,
what are you going to do with those?
What am I?
Yeah. Yeah. Other than just to have them and own them and love looking at them.
Yeah. And I decided that it was okay to just like it. I don't know. I carried a weird stigma around with that for a while. Like, I'm not going to buy that. I would never use it. Okay. Well, maybe it's okay to buy it and not use it. There's lots of stuff that people don't use that they enjoy.
Do you have some swords at home?
I don't have any swords. I have a really solid sized Japanese style tanto that a friend made for me. That's gorgeous. It's probably the closest thing I have to a sword. Yeah.
I've got a few that, again, these I bought, I don't even remember, 20 years ago or whatever. Like, one of them probably not that long after Braveheart came out. I bought the Braveheart sword, the double-handed, huge claymore, and then I've got like the Richard the Lionheart sword. It's like one of those like Franklin Mint kind of things. I don't know if it was Franklin Mint or not, but it's like some catalog I'd get in the mail with like all these incredible swords. So I picked up a few of those and just hung them on the wall. They're cool.
Yeah, we've done episodes a few times about that kind of branch of this world and almost like guilty pleasure stuff. Okay, so we're at the Giant Mouse Place and we're sitting at an awesome table. Tell me about this table, Jim. You and I have talked about it before.
So when we decided we were going to have a showroom here in our headquarters, right away I knew, I kind of had an image in my head of what I wanted the vibe to be.
Yeah.
And we did a pop-up shop at Filson in 2022. We did 4 different Filson stores, but one of them was their Seattle corporate store, which was this huge, huge store. And they had these tables in there that have like a super thick, heavy wood top. And then they have like iron or steel legs and a crank to raise them up or down. So they could be like a work table for chairs to sit at, or you could rise it up to be like a studio table to stand around. And I was just fascinated by those, again, because the industrial nature of it. I love industrial architecture and the fact that you got to turn this crank and the gears end up making it rise up and down. So when we decided we were going to set up this showroom, I started searching for a table like that. And I found a company in Tennessee, and I don't know if the actual name of the company, but the table itself is called Knox, Knox, for Knoxville, Tennessee. And so on the big industrial steel legs, it says in big block letters, it says Knox, and then there's the crank. And it's kind of a conversation piece in its own right. It's a nice showpiece, but it's worked great for our events here. And so we aren't open, for regular hours for like retail yet. And someday maybe we'll do that. But right now we do take appointments. So people just go on our website and book appointments and come by. And every now and again, someone will swing by and, not realize that we're appointment only. And if we're not like in the middle of a meeting here, we'll bring them in and, show them around and let them buy something and take something away. Yeah.
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 So the table's super cool. It's like, I'm going to describe it for people listening. The legs remind me of the bottom half of a connecting rod. So there's sort of an arch shape that touches the ground. And then the main section goes up in a box. And then, the whole crank mechanism on top that lifts and lowers. It's very, very cool. So this is in the middle of the room at the Giant Mouse HQ. And Jim's got some really cool stuff. We already talked about some of the REO stuff. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's on the table, Jim, because some of these you've told me about, and I've seen a few of them, but I know the listeners have not, and they're really cool.
Yeah, so I just kind of went around my office and living room, and I drive my wife nuts because we have these shelves in the living room that kind of like built-in bookcase shelves,
Yeah.
but we've got things on them, and I basically will, periodically, meaning like probably once a year, I'll kind of clean off the shelves and take everything up to my office. But then when the hunting and the searching and the acquiring continues, and things just start going back onto the shelf. So a lot of these things, I pulled off the shelf. And again, it's a real mishmash of things here that I've laid out on the table, but they're just things that, I find in my journeys. I used to love, ever since I was a kid, I loved going to antique stores and it's usually the smalls cases, it's not like the big things. It's like going and looking in the glass cases and seeing all these smalls. And now I do that on the internet, right? And I follow some certain, like, I don't know if you've followed Detroit Urban Artifacts. You should follow Detroit Urban Artifacts. This guy has got an incredible collection of things, and he's got a huge place in Detroit where you can go in and see all the stuff. And a lot of it is like, Detroit specific kind of stuff, but just tons of things from like the manufacturing era and advertising collectibles and all that kind of stuff. So, so like this, I follow this woman, Spit and Polish is a great site on Instagram, and is one of the owner, I guess, Susan, become friends with now. But whenever she posts things for sale, a lot of times I'll jump out right away on a DM and say, "Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that." So like this popped up. I'd never seen one of these before. So it's basically a Stanley ruler, one of those folding, but I've never seen one this small before, and it's just it's just really cool.
Oh, that is cool,
right?
I'm a sucker for any kind of measurement tool.
Yeah,
I love calipers and micrometers and obscure versions of those kind of things.
Yeah.
So
but an antique like this that's wood and brass that is got moving parts on it that you can slide in and out and then fold on a pivot.
Right.
And it's and they've made Stanley, rulers like this. They've made tons of different sizes of them.
Right.
But I've never seen one this small before. And now, again, the way my brain works is like, fuck, I want to make this. I want to kind of redesign this and like, make a new one of this.
Yeah.
As an everyday carry thing for people.
Exactly.
Because, there was a period that I was carrying this in my pocket for a while, just, because it was just so cool.
So it's like 3 inches long-ish, a little over 3 probably, and maybe 1.5 wide.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
And so it's a folding. How long is it overall?
Yeah.
5, 6 inches?
Folds open to about 5.
Almost 6.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And, I guess it would be 6. But then you can pull the end out.
Right. It has like a caliper type feature built into it on the end. Yeah, that's really cool. Brass and wood, tons of character. I love that it's, this, we talked about a knife that we saw, a historic knife that was for the Italian military in a recent show that we did with Sean, where he found this knife that was repurposed, or it was a design that was used by the Italian military in World War I time frame. And it's super interesting. Maybe it was actually a French knife, but it was the model 46 or 43. And what I said on the show is like, I want to see the catalog, right? What are numbers 1 through 42? Because this thing is so pretty.
Yeah.
Like, what do the other things look like?
Yeah.
I mean, are they as cool as this one? And so this one's, it says number 13 and a half, which is fascinating, right? Like, what
so
is that?
If anybody wants to try to look this thing up on the internet and see a picture of it, it's Stanley. The old, the tool company Stanley, Stanley, and the model number on this tool is number 13 and 1/2.
You wonder if the half is because it's a half a foot?
I don't know.
Or it folds in half?
I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. So that's an example of something.
If you work for Stanley, reach out and let us know.
Yeah, right. This, again, back to the Memento Mori theme, I'd been following this for a while on Instagram. There was a guy that, has a collection of this stuff, and I'd seen this, it's one of those things there's the hunt where you're specifically hunting for something, but then there's also like the tracking, like I guess the analogy would be, the first time I saw this, I shot it and it's bleeding out now. And now I'm just tracking it, right? I'm following it. And eventually I'm going to end up, getting it. So it's a match safe. Basically, it's like a sterling silver, pocket match safe, or it could be a watch fob as well. You could hang it, there's a loop to hang it on a chain. But then mounted on it is a really cool, like, brass emblem that's got almost like a Nosferatu looking skull in the center, and it says in a nice script around it, "Memento Mori." And it, again, sort of Victorian era. It's got the match striker on the bottom, and it's just a Beautiful. Fascinating piece that it's like it's not sure how many of these would be out there in the world, right? So again, for me, having something very special and unique like this is what makes it so desirable for me. It's like, I have this, and I don't know, but probably nobody else, certainly anybody else in my circles or on my, social media would not have this thing.
Well, most people wouldn't even know what it is. Right? The idea of a match safe is not a modern thing.
Right. Yeah. No.
So basically a container to hold matches and then a base to strike it on. But do you think, or do you have any idea, was this emblem added later?
I don't know that, but it
there's enough patina that it's been on there a long time at a minimum.
Yeah. I like to think that it was original to the piece, that it was actually designed that way. Because I've seen I used to collect match safes as well. Okay. There are things that I used to collect that I've just kind of sold off, the collections. Jesus, I wish I had these still. At one point, I had a collection of like gold, like solid gold, antique presentation firefighter badges.
Oh, really?
And they would have like engraving on the back, and there were these beautiful firefighter badges, and most of them were from the Northeast. So all these towns around like Connecticut and Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and all these fire department companies. And my favorite one that I kept after selling all the rest of them off, I think I was shifting my interests into probably wanting to buy more watches at that time. I'm like, wow, I've got all this money tied up in these badges. I'm not even a firefighter, it's like, I just like them because they look cool. I guess I'll sell these. But now, given the value of gold today, I'm like, oh my God, that would have been worth a fortune, that collection. But one of them was beautiful, big gold badge. It was all enameled, and it was the Franklin Hook and Ladder Company. Number 1, I think, was the engine company. And on the back of it was all hand engraved, and it was basically said something like, presented to the Franklin Hook and Ladder for selling the largest number of tickets to the Fireman's Ball.
Really?
In like 1890 or something, right? And so I ended up meeting a guy that was writing the history book for the Franklin Hook and Ladder in Lowell, Massachusetts. So I took it there, and I met him and their captain, and I donated it to their little museum that they have of like things, of their history, because he was writing this history book. And
that's super.
I thought, as much as I loved this thing, and I wish I had it today, really part of me is kind of kicking myself, but I don't know, something tugged on me, and I felt like I should just donate it to them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And this piece is one of your pieces, right?
Yes. I brought this because it's the original that I machined. I had a Nomad, I guess, a desktop milling machine back in the day, and I designed this piece. I don't know, what do you think? It's like 2.5 inches by 1.5 inches, maybe. It's basically like an iron vault almost, or I don't know if you've seen like the old school, like they're usually like French or Italian or German, but they're these big treasure boxes, right? And they're iron, and they've got all these big rivets on them. And so I designed it to look like that, but then there's this broken out piece on the top of it where there's a skull peering out. And the idea behind this design was, no matter how secure or ironclad, your life is, death is still just around the corner. Right, it's still pretty fragile, and the ironclad surface can just break away, and there's death, right? So I ended up turning this into one of my Carpe Diem EDC worry stones, and had it. I redesigned it to be cast as a smaller piece. This is heavy. This is solid brass. So I machined that out of brass and then forced a patina on it. And then, but I have those now in the smaller, more lighter weight brass, or I've done them in brass and copper and silver, I think, as worry stones to carry.
How long did it take to mill this on your little desktop machine?
Man, I think it was like a couple of hours probably.
Yeah, at least, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I really loved machining things.
Yeah.
And then I just didn't have time anymore, and I just kind of completely moved away from that. But probably 6 months, 8 months ago, I bought a new desktop milling machine, and I have it out of the box sitting on my desk. I've not learned how to use it yet, because I would really like to get back into that.
Right.
A couple of pieces of meteorite, just because I love, again, it's something that, is one of a kind. This I found at an heritage auctions, I guess. They have gems and mineral auctions a lot.
Yep.
And I follow those. I used to, as a kid, I had a full-on lapidary setup with, the piece of equipment I had a diamond blade saw, a grinding wheel, sanding wheels, and a polishing wheel. And I was doing at like 12 or 13, like full-on lapidary, like grinding stones and making stones to fit into settings. Was buying settings, to set stones in. Mom's probably, had most of the stuff, that I ever made, because I didn't know what else to do with it. Tried selling it a couple of times at a couple of things as a kid, but then took a silversmithing class at a local community college and actually started making some of my own settings out of silver.
Very cool.
But then again, went, kind of into high school and all that kind of fell by the wayside, kind of doing high school and college. And I really miss those days. I'd love to go back and sort of relearn how to do all that creative stuff. So this skull is meteorite. This skull is made by the same artist that did these skulls over here. Okay. But it's a little skull out of meteorite. He has he's done. He doesn't have it, but it's like sometimes you can find it available for sale. It's like a life-size skull out of meteorite.
Oh, really?
That's like $50,000 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, we're suckers for meteorite.
Yeah, I think just to have a little skull carved out of meteorite, and it's heavy for its size.
Right.
Yeah.
That came from space.
Yeah, right.
For my son's wedding, I had some cufflinks made with meteorite inlay, and that was I showed them to somebody, and they're like, oh yeah, those are interesting. What is that? And I said, it's meteorite. They're like, what do you mean? Like, it's like a rock from space. And then they sliced it and stuck it in these cufflinks. And the person looked at me like, what is wrong with you? Like, and I'm like, no, it's super cool. I love it. And
it is super cool.
It doesn't need to be stone or something.
I leave this on the shelf in the living room because I love when I've got company over and I can just say, hey, put out your hand. And I put this in their hand and I say, that came from, this wasn't on this earth. That came from outer space.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing.
And landed on this earth and was like cast off as a shard of a giant meteorite. Yeah. And it's just heavy as hell and it's just super cool.
It really is.
So back to this artist, Lee Downey is the name of the artist. And he was the guy that was carving the billiard ball skulls.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that little meteorite skull. And then, so I went to it was in, I think it might've been like Tucson, Arizona. It was an annual gem show, like a gem and jewelry show. And this was before I started Giant Mouse, but like after I had started Golden Gate Goods, which is now Carpe Diem EDC. So I went to try to find things that I could buy and sell, so buy at wholesale, sell at retail kind of thing. And I saw this, and it might have been like this one in this size, but I saw this almost baseball-sized skull carved out of this incredible amber glass. And the color was fascinating. This just really, really, cool yellow, kind of amberish yellow glass. And I said, can I see that? And he handed it to me and I picked it up and I was like, holy crap, why is it so heavy?
Yeah.
Right. So you pick up this little, smaller than a baseball skull and carved out of glass. and it's super heavy. And that's when I learned that it was carved out of glass that came from one of the viewing ports at the Hanford facility that made the atomic bombs in World War II. So it's where they were making the plutonium for the bombs, and the scientists working there could look through into the reactor area or whatever, but there's like this, 10-inch thick or, 8 to 10-inch thick big viewing ports of this leaded glass. So basically it's 70% lead. This glass is, so maybe wash your hands after we're done.
Right, exactly.
Don't lick it.
Right.
So I didn't buy it at that time. It was like really expensive. And I'm like, man, that's really cool. But I didn't buy it. And then as things go, I never stopped thinking about it. And I kept looking online for it for years and years and years. And then, probably 6-7 years after I had seen it for the first time, this one popped up. And
that's crazy.
Feel this. So it's a much bigger one.
Holy cow. Yeah, this is like baby head size.
Yeah. Basically, it's about the size of a baby's head, but it's like an adult skull carved out of this leaded glass. I think it weighs 8 or 9 pounds. And I had to have it. And it was like, I'm not even going to say how much it was because you'd think I was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But I told my wife, hey, I know what I want for our 30th anniversary. I'm going to get this for myself.
Yeah.
Just because I have to have it. And then after I got this one, it was a couple of years later, this much smaller one popped up somewhere, either on an auction site or it might have been on eBay. I'm not sure, but same artist again, Lee Downey, and he's since given me certificates of authenticity for both of these.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I've written with him many times.
Oh, and he's got a mark on it as well, right? At least this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. There's a little maker's mark. That's awesome.
Yep, little maker's mark on it. And then this, back to that heritage auction, this chunk popped up.
Yeah.
And it's just like a jewel almost,
Right.
It's probably 4 inches by 3 inches, by 2 inches, kind of rectangle with some facets and angles, kind of machined on it or whatever. And then all polished up. And it's just a beautiful chunk of kind of amber yellow glass that's heavier than it should be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to describe to people. You give the weight, right? But it's like they're deceivingly heavy for their size.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then we talked.
Oh, you mentioned these
briefly
earlier
at the beginning. I don't know if it was part of the recording or not, but so again, kind of tied into my it actually brings together my love of skulls and memento mori theme and watches. Are these, sometimes they're called doctor's clocks or just memento mori clocks. And they would sit on a desk, basically, and it's got a skull. So this one is silver with a little skull on top with a really intricate crown on top of the skull. But then when you flip the lid open, it has an enamel dial clock in there. That's a key wound clock, and it's enameled with a scene of like a skeleton. Some skeletons doing some things on the enamel dial, and then you can pop the.
Oh, to get to the movement.
So the movement itself is it's a pocket watch movement, but it's like the early pocket watch movements it's called a verge fusée movement. So there's a chain in there. There's actually a really fine chain that kind of runs with the gears. And then they're always like really intricately engraved in brass on the back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I went to a Red Bar Detroit meeting with Christopher Ward.
Yeah.
And I took these and set them out on the table. Yeah. And like nobody had ever heard of these. I mean, at least the guys that were coming by in that part of the room, and they couldn't believe what these were, and they were fascinated, and they all like started searching online to try to find some. They're pricey for sure, but they're just fascinating. So this one is gilt, like a gilted, a brass or whatever. But again, it's got just a really cool movement in there. It's funny, somebody actually, wrote with a little marker on there the direction to wind it.
Yeah.
But I have, watch keys for both of these, and I've wound them, and they run. which is really cool.
That is cool. What is this there's a little silver dial. Is this a timing dial? Like you can adjust
I think that's
how it runs?
I think that's to adjust, fast or slow.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
this one has it too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, they're beautiful.
And then this one is cool. This popped up on eBay, and I don't think the guy knew what he had.
Yeah.
And the price was way lower than I think it should have been.
Yeah.
So I just jumped on it, buy it now. It's basically a cane topper, but it's missing the cane.
Okay.
But it would have been on a cane.
Yeah.
And as the head of a cane, so it's a skull, and it has a little monk on the top of the skull, is like this little robed monk just sitting up there. And again, it's got
Flips open. Yeah.
flip it open, and it's got the enamel dial in there. And, again, it's
right.
Really intricately, engraved in there.
That's
you can see the chain that runs around that little wheel there. So that's kind of become, a thing that I hunt for regularly, or I just have got saved searches everywhere online to try to find these. And I know the guy that I bought these two from, I think he's in like Bulgaria or something.
Oh,
and
really?
He's got like this incredible collection he's got like, I don't even know how he ended up with this collection. He's got like Fabergé eggs from like the Russian era,
really? Check that out.
He's got all this stuff. And I'll have to send you a link to his account on eBay. But
wow, that's
he's
really
got
cool.
tons of old clocks and watches like this.
Cane topper makes sense. When I saw this, I thought maybe it was a bottle stop or something, like a bottle stopper. Yeah, cane topper. That's really cool. This would make an awesome cane.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find somebody who can make a custom cane for it, actually, if you have any ideas.
Okay.
If anybody out there, if any listeners out there know of anybody that could make a really amazing straight cane, basically, with the top of the cane would have a hole to receive the plug on the bottom of this skull that would sit in the hole at the top of the cane.
You should do it out of some crazy looking tiger maple or something, right? Something really pretty. Yeah.
And then just carrying on the theme, I found this Memento Mori watch fob. So it's, a lot of times if you go to like museums, and you'll see like rosary beads like this, where one half of the bead is a human face and the other half is a skull. Yeah. And it's just a reminder that, it's not that far apart, life, death kind of thing, So this watch fob chain has 1, 2, 3, 4 of these beads on it. It's solid silver, and it's got the half face, half skull. So I put it on just one of the pocket watches that I started collecting pocket watches now. So they fascinate me.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I know a couple people that really enjoy the pocket watch thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Those are really fascinating. I'm sorry I missed that Christopher Ward event because a bunch of my friends were there.
Oh, were they?
The Detroit Red Bar guys, yeah. We had some stuff going on, so I couldn't join you guys, but those are fantastic. I really like that one with that ornate crown on top of the skull's head. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. I've tried 3D scanning it to like actually 3D print this bigger, this skull with the crown on it, and I still haven't gotten the details, it's so intricate that I haven't gotten a good enough scan to be able to 3D print it. So, but now I just find I've been waiting a couple years for this. There's now websites where you can basically just take a photograph of something and upload it, and it'll turn it into a 3D printable file.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've heard of that
I've
before.
got like these toys from when I was a kid, Major Matt Mason, little astronaut guys. So I took a picture of one of my Major Matt Mason guys and I uploaded it, and it just like really right away, boom, I've got a 3D printable STL file.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's technology is getting crazy there.
Scary.
Yeah. A couple other things, I guess, this just grabbed it off my mantle. It sits on at the base of a bronze cougar, like a cougar, a panther, basically, like an Art Deco panther. So when we go to Nuremberg each year for the IWA Outdoor Classic Show, which we're heading actually in about a week and a half, I guess we're heading there. And Jesper from Denmark will come join us there. But we've been going to that show for the past, 9 years or so. And almost always we'll stay at the Grand Hotel, which is this incredible historic hotel. there. It was the hotel where the army stayed when they were there for the Nuremberg trials. And it's just got all this history. So behind the registration desk, there's this big glass display case that's maybe 7 feet, 8 feet tall, and 4 or 5 feet across. And it's loaded with these keys.
Yeah.
That were the original keys for the guests. So you'd get your key and it would come on a real heavy brass thing. So it's you're not going to forget it in your pocket or leave the hotel with it, right? Because it's so heavy. So I asked the guy behind the desk, I was like, man, I started collecting some things that I can find online that are sort of, the history of the Grand Hotel. And I said, those are amazing. Could I see one of those? And he reached down and he grabbed one and he showed it to me. And then he said, just take it.
Really?
Yeah. So he basically gave me this thing out of that case. And it's this really cool, heavy brass, key fob that is not something you would carry in your pocket. And then it says Grand Hotel on it. It's got the key and it's got a little no smoking sign on it too.
Right.
And back to the Panther. So in the bar at the Grand Hotel, the bar is called the Atelier, and it's this Art Deco bar. And on the bar is this bronze Panther that's polished bronze. And we talking to the bartender there, over the number of times that we've been there. But this particular time, we were talking and asking him about that bronze Panther. And he said that at one point in time, it had been stolen. Now, the thing weighs about 80 pounds, right? I mean, it's heavy as hell and maybe more. I don't know. It's big. And they said that whoever stole it got 2 blocks down the street and just left it on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And somebody brought it back because they knew where it had come from. So they got it back. But so I took pictures of this thing and saw the name of the artist, and the date was 1930. So again, I put out a saved search on the internet, and because I thought, that's something I would love to have. And then sure enough, one point got a ping on my email that there was one in an art gallery in France. And the one that was in the art gallery was all patinaed, whereas the one in the bar is all polished.
Okay.
But the patinaed one was amazing looking. So again, it's that's something I definitely don't need, but it's something that I kind of think I really want because it means so much to me. And that place and that bar in Nuremberg, I've got so many memories. And so I'm like, I got to get that. So I had it shipped. It came in a big wooden box. It was kind of like the scene from Christmas Story, fragile. There could be anything in here.
With the leg lamp.
And it was a box like that. It was all a crate that was all put together. And then, I pull out this big, bronze Panther and it sits on our mantle at home.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff.
That's crazy.
It's the hunt. Again, it's all about the hunt.
It's funny about the crate. There's a knife maker named Steve Kelly, and his wife started painting. And she was doing these beautiful, I don't know what I would call them, pretty much abstract pieces, a little bit Pollock-like, not as splashy as a Pollock piece, but they're fascinating. I thought her work was beautiful. And so we commissioned a piece, and she painted it for our living room, and it was big compared to the pieces that she had been doing. And she's like, God, I need to figure out how to get this to you. And so her husband, Steve, the knife maker guy, who makes titanium parts for most of the custom makers these days, he ended up building a wooden crate to ship the painting in.
Wow.
And when it showed up, I was like, I almost want to hang the crate on the wall. It's beautiful. He did a fantastic job. I mean, I don't, it was gorgeous. I took it apart and I seriously debated keeping the crate because it was beautiful. But I'm like, what am I going to do with this crate for a painting? And it was just I thought it was really funny because I'm like, man, makes me want to find a spot to display this wooden crate that the painting came in.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did beautiful work. So
that's cool.
Yeah, you'll have to check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Over. Okay. Well, you heard the first part of this conversation I had with Jim. Really fascinating story, I think, and some interesting stuff. You're going to hear lots more interesting stuff in part 2 of the episode, so that'll be coming out here shortly as episode 152. Again, just one last thank you to our friends on Patreon, all the guys at Giant Mouse for their ongoing support, and likewise for Arizona Custom. Both of those sponsors have been with us for quite some time now. We appreciate all of them, and we appreciate all you for listening. So, again, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine in his Facebook group Crine Knives or on Instagram @Crine Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram @BirchtreeBlades. For my own projects, I'm on the web at raygundivision.com or check my personal Instagram @msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or discussion about the show itself, you can always find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram @markofthemaker. Last but not least, credit for the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show. This is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. And as always, thanks for listening.